Hello guys, and welcome back to HJW Gaming. In this video I'm trying to bring attention to an exploit with the new marching system that my fellowship stumbled into during our King of Men campaign, and I also want to kind of discuss possible methods for people who face up against this before it gets patched, and how you can kind of counter up against this kind of tactic. Now, kind of before I continue, I just want to talk through a couple of disclaimers. Obviously, I don't really endorse the use of any kind of exploit. However, it appears to be an intended feature of the marching system, which you will see kind of when I discuss why this occurs and how to kind of make it take effect. So what is the exploit that I'm referring to here? This exploit allows you to utilise the current occupation system of when you hit a tile, you need to spend 5 minutes on the tile unchallenged in order to occupy it. And this doesn't apply just for tiles, it also applies for anything from passes to keeps to other significant structures like passes. So it can be utilised in any kind of tile possible, though of course it's most usefully used at choke points and other significant structures. So if I highlight here and I come over to Argonath, which is where my team has stumbled into this, you can see that the opposition is currently trying to occupy Argonath and has currently around 20 armies on it. These have been stationed for around 4 or 5 hours now without occupation of Argonath. Originally they did have well over 100 armies here sitting and waiting, and they have to go through that 5-minute occupy timer. So, why can't the opposition occupy Argonath? Now this is again talking about a feature of the new marching system, as I said earlier, where you need to sit and occupy for 5 minutes in order to take the structure. The problem is you need to have those 5 minutes unchallenged, which is possible when you're taking a keep or something like that, and you can clear enemy forts around and build your own fort wall around the structure. However, at other areas such as passes and, as you can see here, Argonath, you can't really stop that as they can't hit our forts over here. So what we have been able to do is if we hit Argonath every time around that occupation timer, we can reset the timer, because if we hit the army that's doing the occupation, it will reset the timer. Which means that if you do this strategically every 2 to 3 minutes, you can indefinitely reset the timer. So if you see here, it's currently paused at 2 minutes 40, and we are sending more armies here to hit, and if we can clear the army that's doing the occupation, another army will begin to take over, and that will restart the occupation timer. As I said, we've been doing this for a few hours now, and so there you go, you can see there it's reset to 5 minutes. You can do this indefinitely in order to prevent an opponent from occupying any structure. The reason this happens is you don't just hit on the tile and click march in order to hit. It's through the way that the game registers the collision system when you march past an opponent's army that's trying to occupy a tile. If we were to march at this here, we would only hit the top armies that are on this structure, which would be about 20 other armies before we hit the occupying one. However, if you march to an adjacent tile, the first army that you will hit in the collision system is that which is trying to occupy the structure. So if we send to this tile here, just next to Argonath, what will happen is the collision system will automatically make our armies hit that which is trying to occupy the structure. Now obviously the issue with this is we can do this indefinitely, which will just repeatedly reset that 5-minute timer just by hitting this tile next to Argonath. So how do you get out of this infinite loop? Well, if you're utilising this to your advantage, what your intention is to clear all the armies currently sat on top of the structure that is being taken. So for example, there's 20 odd armies on here. If we can clear all 20 armies, the occupation timer will stop, the tile will reset back to having those 30 armies, and the opponent will have to re-siege as well. At that point, we can stop utilising this and just wait and ready for when they attack again and try and take it a second time. Now, if you're on the receiving end of this, obviously it's not a particularly joyful experience, which is kind of why I'm intending to make this video, is I want to get attention to this from the devs in the hope that they will change this, because it is incredibly frustrating. If I was on the receiving end of this, obviously I would be incredibly frustrated, as we have seen pretty much all of us getting, you know, some lovely messages in this regard. So hopefully it gets patched as soon as possible. However, there are ways, if you're on the receiving end of this, to beat the opponent's use of this. The primary way is to take out the opponent's armies and forts around the area so that they cannot hit and reset your timer. Now, the way to do this, of course, is if it's at a pass or as Argonath such as here, so they can't march at ours here. The way to do that, the only way to do that, is to use flying units, so eagles or fell beasts. And if you spend, all of you, before you do your next hit on the structure, if you create a significant number of flying armies and you clear around beforehand, then when the occupation timer starts, you just send as hard as possible and clear the enemy armies out so they can't interrupt your occupation timer. All you have to do is buy yourself 5 minutes of time. If you can do that successfully and send a wave of eagle armies to block the opponent's attempts to stop occupation, you will be able to take the structure and continue as normal. The other way, and whilst it's not a particularly enjoyable way to do so, is to wait for a maintenance timer. Now, maintenance, I believe, usually occurs around 0200 or 0300 UTC. If you can keep hold and keep this occupation timer going and keep armies on the structure all the way up until maintenance timer, obviously whilst maintenance is going on, the opponents will not be able to send armies in order to interrupt you. Whilst that's not exactly ideal, as if you've hit a structure, say, like these teams here did, at around 6 PM UTC, that means holding out for 6 to 8 hours, which is not particularly fun. It might be better to instead schedule your keeps around that time so that you can utilise that maintenance timer to your advantage and prevent the opponent from using this glitch on you. So yeah, just to kind of highlight as quickly as possible, steps to do this: when the opponent's occupying, you just need to send an army and repeatedly interrupt the army that is trying to occupy the structure. That way they then have reset the timer, and you can do this indefinitely, as I said we kind of have done here. Now, my intention with this video, I'm fully aware that that means a lot of people are going to start utilising this, and I'm fully aware that I'm probably going to get a load of pelters here from people who are not happy with it. However, I'm trying to bring attention to this to the developers so that it can get patched as quickly as possible, as this quite clearly, whilst the March Occupy timer is a feature of their system, utilising it this way was obviously not the intention, and exploiting it this way. So I think this will get patched in the near future. I just want to bring as much attention to it as possible so it can get changed as soon as possible. And I also kind of wanted to talk through the different ways to counter it, just to make sure that if this happens to you, you know how to beat it, or know ways to possibly beat it, so that you don't get caught out in the future. Anyway, if you guys could try and get this video out there as much as possible, if you could share the video around to make sure you're not caught out by this or other fellowships aren't caught out, and if you could also like as well the video, that will help get a lot of exposure to this video, and hopefully the devs will see it and clear this as soon as possible. And additionally, if you do like the content I bring through, if you could hit the subscribe button finally, that would make a huge difference to me, and I would really appreciate it. And anyway, with that, I've been HJW Gaming, and I really hope to see you on the next one.